Hi, I'm Dave Berkenshaw. Welcome to Without the Beatles. Once again, we have the company of Rich Merritt, who's taking the place of Mark for the time being while he's still on holiday. You all right, Rich?
Yeah, thank you, Des, for asking me once again. And really enjoyed it last time.
Well, today our special guest is Chris White from the Zombies. We're going to get straight to it.
Hi, Des.
How you doing? This is actually really interesting because we are really good friends. We've been good friends now for about 6-7 years, and we met because of the Zombies.
Really?
Yeah. Do you remember the Albert Hall Q&A a few years ago? There was a playback. I think the book had just come out or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm standing in the queue, and my 10-year-old is with me.
Yes.
Absolutely loves Odyssey and Oracle. She went to the Palladium. She caught that because she was like 10, one of the last ones.
Man.
And we were at this Q&A. She wanted to go and hear it, and she wanted to get her. She did get a picture taken with you guys at the end, right? So we stand there, and he says, "What the hell's she doing here? She's too young for this." I said, "This is one of her favourite albums."
We were sat together.
Yeah,
we were sat together.
Anyway, it's whatever it is, we're like fast friends, and it's 8 years later or something.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. So this is us, which is quite meta, isn't it?
It is,
You're
really,
being interviewed by two people who met because of How are you?
I'm fine. You excellent, are you?
Yes. Good.
I'm fine, except my balance is a bit screwed, but that's part of being born in the 40s. So.
Yeah.
That is one of the things to talk about at some point today, because I'm really conscious of the fact that as someone, I'm in my 50s, and I feel like one by one I'm slowly being orphaned from all the people that I most admired.
Exactly. Same thing I have too. Yeah.
What was it? Who were the heroes of your generation, and have you already been through that? I mean, it must be quite a painful process, right?
Yes, all the heroes died. Simple as that. My close friends who did the cover of Odysey and Oracle died as well. We moved down to Salisbury to work on a musical. But he died 2 weeks before we came down there.
So are you still writing, Chris?
Yes, definitely.
Still writing.
Yeah, my sons have they put it. One was a recording engineer. One had his own group. But they put a company together. They found about 800 tapes of my old tapes. They're releasing those at the moment.
I've seen them come out. I think you're on volume 5, aren't you now? I think
7 now.
Seven now.
There's some great stuff on there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've even noticed, but I always thought, when I was a kid and I was watching the kind of Top of the Pops clips and all that kind of stuff, to me, you stood out a mile because
Glasses, oh yes.
It's something I wouldn't say I took them especially from you. It was probably a mix of you and Michael Caine and a few other people.
And Hank Marvin.
Yeah. But but you've gone kind of more modest in
yes, I have
later years. Why was that?
Less national health, more personal.
I think they just made better glasses in those days.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And there was two of you, wasn't there, both wearing them in the early shots?
Yes, exactly.
And then
Paul
Paul
did,
took his off.
Yes, right. Went to contact lenses. Yeah.
I didn't recognise him from the pictures. When I was younger, looking through the books and watching the Zombies, I think, who's that guy?
But age is a thing, and the older I get, the weirder it is. Because I'm, talking to a kid who's like 40. I was 40 when I had my daughter, and the thing about that is I'm describing something that seemed very real to me that was yesterday, but is literally might as well be the ancient Greeks to her. She really. And I guess I felt like that when I was talking to my grandparents or something in the past. But it is a function of age that you feel like you did it yesterday.
Exactly. It's quite weird. When we got inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we did it on stage, and I looked along and it was like we were all in 27 again. The energy from the audience is fantastic.
Yeah. So the podcast is called Without the Beatles, and I always start by asking people the same question. I was like, can you imagine a world without the Beatles? And if not,
no. I cannot.
Why?
Neither can you.
Funnily enough, no.
What did they mean to you growing up?
Oh, well, it's exciting because Please mean all those anything that you want all came out when we were just getting together and playing. And of course, it engendered the idea of songwriting. That's the most important thing, really. And they did their own stuff. Before that, it was all copies of American songs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, but it was they generated that force, and we were lucky. Just after they went to America, that we went the same year, in '64, and our first gig was at Murray the K's Brooklyn Fox, over Christmas, and we were on stage with Chuck Jackson, Benny King, the Shirelles, Patti LaBelle, for goodness sake, and they were our heroes. So be on stage with them, 6 shows a day for 10 days.
And I imagine the bus as well.
Oh yeah, and of course we were locked in there because it was Christmas and they were away from home, so we socialised. That was fantastic.
Partying with your heroes at Christmas.
Yeah.
It's something, it's still really hard to get your head around, really, when you look at how many British acts there have been in the American charts prior to the Beatles, which is 0, really. I think there's someone, like, I can't remember who it is, there's one person. Does Telstar count? I think that was because that was a Joe Mead thing.
Yes, right, yes.
So maybe that, then nothing else. And then if you didn't look the year after, it's you, it's the Who, it's, the Kinks, the Stones, blah, 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 the Animals. And that's an amazing change. Actually, that's only just been reversed now. I think this year was the first year where there's been no British acts in the top 100 selling American records.
Yeah, I got fed up with us now.
When I was good.
We got rid of you and now you're back again, yeah.
What was it like going over there for the first time? I imagine it's the first time you've been to America.
Absolutely, because it was one place you wanted to go, but it was fantastic because we flew in, got picked up from the airport, JFK, and then drove through New York. And the first thing that struck us was sirens. Never heard them before because, as I said before, that there were police bells. They had bells on the cars.
Okay, can't imagine that now.
And hearing gunshots as well.
Yeah.
That happened to me in the 80s when I went to New York for the first time. I lay in this terrible hotel room, and I know exactly what you talk about. There was a smell, there was the steam from the sidewalks, literally like out of a film, and that sound of the sirens, which was continuous in New York. And it's quite a thing. I actually come from Luton, so I'm not a million miles away.
I was born in Markyate.
Right, so
I came from Markyate, which is just up the road. I used to go to cinema in Luton, so yeah.
You poor devil. With the cinema was where the Beatles played. I've told this story, I think, on the podcast before. If I haven't, I'll just recap that my mum, the whole podcast actually comes from the idea of my mum having a ticket to see the Beatles in the cinema in Luton.
Right, there.
And didn't go because she met my dad and went off with him instead of her boyfriend. But it was really interesting, isn't it? Because we were talking about this venue that we're in today, Earth in Hackney. But actually, in those days, the venues were cinemas. They were, basically. Yeah. There was no O2s, So.
Well, we did the tour of England with the Isley Brothers and Dionne Warwick and places like that, and they were all cinemas. It was quite weird. And the Searchers as well. So.
Still being used as cinemas, but we're putting shows on.
Usually, just at the weekends or Sundays or something, they had a show, and it was several acts on.
How did it work in those days? So, paint a picture for me. So, you've been booked to play. Let's say you were playing the ABC Luton or something like that as part of a mixed bill. What would your routine have been like? I mean, I presume you didn't have a big executive bus with loads of roadies.
No.
So, did we start from home? What would it have been like?
Yeah, we were all based in St Albans when I was in Markyate. So basically the band used to come around and pick us up one by one and then go around the country. But on package tours, it was a coach meeting us in London. So we had to be in the coach by the planetarium. That's where I used to meet. And then I always remember one day the Isley Brothers were on this tour, but the tour manager said basically, this boat coach leaves like a plane. If you're not there, we leave. And he left. The Isley Brothers hasn't turned up. They turned around. They came round the corner, just the bus leaving in a London taxi. Our next gig was in Liverpool, and the taxi followed the bus all the way up.
Oh.
So the road manager had to pay the taxi.
Look, we're in, Bedfordshire in 1963. I mean, it's not like people are 64. No one's got a Chevy. Where did you put all the equipment? So you say the band come picture.
Well, we didn't have that much equipment, really, quite honest,
So was it shared equipment at the venues and things? Or
No, we bought little bits of cheap amplifiers and microphones. My father ran a shop in Markyate, and he advanced some money to us, and we bought more equipment bit by bit,
It's interesting. It's always interesting that I just never understood the logistics. The cars are small. Where did Hugh stick his kit? Is it on top of the car?
Actually, he used to drive to rehearsals on his moped with his drum kit on there.
How?
With Colin on the back with his guitar.
Really?
Yeah.
They should have lived in India. That's I've been to India, and I once fell asleep in a car in India. I was going to a wedding, and they'd given me a shavani to wear. It was so hot. We'd just been by accident to Rishikesh. I'm a big Beatle fan, but I didn't actually go there. It was just on the way. And we come out of Rishikesh, and I was in the back of this Range Rover, and I fell asleep against the window. And I took my top off because it was so hot, and I'd fallen asleep against the window. So, and I woke up to a moped with 4 women on it. I've never seen any people look so horrified in their lives. There was this ghostly white man who you didn't see anywhere we were. Wow.
Coming for me,
Dead in the back of the car.
They must be shifting a body. Yeah.
And I always think of them on their moped. They were like, like doing one of those dances where you split off into 4 sides. Oh no! I mean, I don't even know how that'd be possible. Didn't the police pull you over? He's like, no. What are you doing with your drum kit, mate?
He went by himself and Colin. Well, it was 2 rehearsals. It was basically in Hatfield, where he used to turn up on a moped with his drum kit, what he had in those days, and Colin was sometimes on the back with his guitar. So.
We watched the wonderful film recently.
Oh, right, it was good. They made a good job of that, didn't they?
They did. I enjoyed it a lot. One of the things that come across was, when you're working with all those people you were talking about, there's the band's insecurity about, because it is difficult, that, isn't it?
It was our heroes, playing on stage with our heroes, Benny King and Chuck Jackson, Shirelles. God, that was really, really... and they took us to their heart, to be quite honest. They were so welcoming, and we were embarrassed because, as we said in the documentary, we were playing their songs.
Yeah.
And they said, "No, you've done us good because we've got no more work now."
I can't even imagine what that was like. And how long did you say the tours were? How many weeks?
Oh, a long time. We went on the Dick Clark tour. That was a very busy one. One thing we couldn't get used to was the racism in the South. That was very strange. All the black acts were with us on these buses, but then they accepted us because we had English accents. We weren't American.
Yeah.
But how did that racism show itself then? Can you remember an incident where it first came into your face?
Yeah, well, in the southern states, that was the thing. And we stopped a bus full of black acts, famous black acts, and us. And as we walked out, Colin had his arm round the lead singer of the Velvets. And the manager came out and said, "We've got to leave now. You can't be seen with the black girl." And then a van drove up, a pickup truck with rednecks in, and they started haranguing us all and everybody. And so we thought we'd better leave. It was a big bus. But then American footballers came in their coach, and they got out and they turned the rednecks band upside down. But it was 2 sides of it. We were not used to it. We weren't used to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first kind of black people in Britain really came after the war.
Yes.
And sort of inhabited Soho mostly. So you've got all the Zoot stuff and everything. And so it'd been a bit more, and people have thought, I did a whole film once about the cultural exchange of the First World War, where British people have for the first time really met people from around the world.
Yes.
And I'd already realised that people were, the same.
Yeah.
And indeed, even the people in Bristol who fought to abolish slavery back in the 1700s, the people had already realised that. So we were 200 years ahead of the Americans on that.
Yeah.
They haven't really solved it, though, as a problem, to be honest, even now.
In terms of the writing, when did you start thinking, I could probably write some of these songs?
Well, actually, when our first recording session, because we were introduced to Ken Jones, our original, and he did all the best things for us. But then he said, "You can write your own stuff when we go into the recording session." After we'd won this contest, and Rod wrote "She's Not There," and I wrote "You Make Me Feel Good" on the B-side. And you suddenly realised, I hadn't written when I was a kid more songs together, but they quite really copies of American things. But it was just great writing. I just really enjoyed that,
This was written on guitar.
And keyboard. I had a grand piano, not grand piano, an upright piano in my parents' house, because we all lived at home in those days.
Yeah. You had the confidence to think, I can do this.
Yeah.
Again, I'm fascinated by that a different time and place, So you're in this band, you're appearing on TV, you're starting to travel and everything. How did Mum and Dad take that? What was that like?
Well, right. My dad used to be a London bus inspector, but then he opened a shop in Margate, and he said, "No, go for it." And he played double bass as well. You see, an amateur, and he taught me on double upright bass first of all. You see,
That's how you learnt the bass, was it?
yeah.
It's a big swap over. I play bass. It's a big swap over. I never really got to grips because of the fourths and fifths thing.
Yes.
It's a real head. I interviewed Jeff Lynne from ELO once,
Right.
and he's got a double bass that he put frets on,
Really?
so that he could sort of do it. Literally had it customized.
Oh, really?
That's cheating.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Definitely
You
cheating.
don't have frets on a double bass, no.
Couldn't.
And you
It's the
can't
point,
slide
isn't it?
them properly.
Well,
no?
maybe they were drawn on, but it was actually customized so that you could.
Oh,
do it,
right.
yeah. So-
I mean.
And if you could play guitar and keys,
Yeah.
why did you choose bass as your instrument within the band?
I had a skiffle group first of all, and I played with other musicians, and I wasn't that great on guitar, and so I just played the bass.
Gravitated towards the bass.
Yeah.
Did you do the string bass thing, or did you actually have a real bass?
No, I was in a group where I played guitar, and the singer played a string bass. No, T-chest bass.
T-chest bass. That's what I meant. Yeah, I meant the T-chest. Yeah, the classic. Did it actually make a noise? I've never actually seen one.
I don't think it did. It was the look of it, really, basically.
Just made a twang.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, boom, boom, and you couldn't really hit the notes because it.
Mind you, some of those. In talking to the Beatles, the Hofner is a bit like that. To be fair,
Yeah.
where if it's got flat wounds on it, it's sort of.
Yeah. In fact, I used to play guitar in the skiffle group then, and basically in my first groups, and I played the bass notes basically, so the people were fooled by the upright T-chest bass,
Right. Yes. But the good thing about bass, I always find when I'm playing live. I mean, I play guitar and piano as well, but with the thing about playing bass live is people don't notice the mistakes as much unless you're playing like round wounds and you're doing hard rock or something. But if you're playing anything else, you can get away with a fluff note every now and again.
Yes,
it's jazz,
One thing you know when you're a musician is how to fake it.
Also, what was it like? So when you got to America and you all seem to be enjoying yourself in the TV clips that still survive and everything. Yeah. But what was it like sort of turning up? Can you remember your first ever TV studio and how did that all make you feel? And what was again? I'm always interested as if I could be back in the room. What would have been the discussion? I mean, how terrified? Who was the most terrified? This kind of thing.
I think we were all terrified, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
but when we first did one of the first Hullabaloo things in colour, it was one of the first colour programs, and Jack Jones, I think, in the film they did it basically, but he introduced us, and they wanted us to dance, and it was crap for all of us. I mean, we were absolute rubbish, so they gave up in the end. My bloke was trying to teach us dance was Action from West Side Story,
Oh no!
And so he gave up on us in the end. He said, "No, we won't do the dancing."
It's amazing how many musicians who do groove-based music can't dance.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that over the years?
Yes, yeah.
That's a form of whatever it is, dislocation, something like that. It's like compensation.
Yeah. Well, that's why I play bass, because at least I can move with the bass, but simple as that, one step and the other,
The Americans seemed to get your music though, didn't they? I think more than
yes,
back here.
yeah.
Why do you think that was?
No idea, because we went for different things. Basically, we didn't copy anyone, so that's what we tried to all be original. Try to be original. Yeah. I say to young writers today, for goodness' sake, write and don't copy anyone else. Do what you feel, what you feel like.
Do you think it was the Britishness, the British invasion? You were very British. You looked at, and I know that there was a lot of stuff that was written about you that was over-egged, about the education and everything else.
That was the record company. They said, what should we talk about? And so they made things up. We said, we just finished school. Well, the others, I was 2 years older than the others, you see. I'd been at art college because I was going to be an art teacher.
Yeah.
I had 4 years at art college. They just had their exams,
So you think the Americans were sold on this idea of you being very bookish?
I hope not. That's why we're more popular in America than we were in England, to be quite honest.
Yeah, no,
I think that's still the case, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've got friends in America that are absolutely obsessed with zombies.
It's weird.
It's just, and far more, I'm talking now in the 90s, just because Odysey and Oracle sort of hit, big around the 90s over
Yes.
here. It's sort of, everybody sort of rediscovered. I did for one.
Right.
Early 90s, I managed to stumble across a copy, and I was like, oh, where has this been?
Well, it's weird because basically Rod and I were happy with the way Ken Jones was doing our stuff. He made it a bit too soft. He tried to make everything like She's Not There, to be quite honest. So we weren't allowed at the mixes in the early days, you see, because that wasn't done in those days. But Rod and I, as writers, wanted to do it ourselves. So CBS offered us £1,000 to do an album, and they got us into Abbey Road's £1,000 to do the album. Then they asked for stereo, so Rod and I had to pay for that.
I often wonder, I've read that because you knew you had £1,000,
Yeah.
you rehearsed the songs
Oh, well,
absolutely bang on. So
Not
when
to
you
do
went
that-
in the studio, nothing would be wasted.
That's right,
But
absolutely.
then I often think, when you got there, there's all these new toys to play with that the Beatles had left behind.
Yes.
And then you had probably, had to alter the arrangements that you might have had when you were rehearsing them.
Well, it was really 4-track, just 4-track recording, but the Beatles had asked them to find another way to expend it because there were no 8 tracks in England in those days. So what we used to do 4 tracks and then link it up to another 4-track with a sync system, and so we had another 3 tracks to work with. And then when we mixed, both machines going.
You had the Mellotron, and
Rod's
which is a
eyes
huge
lit up
part,
when that happened.
A huge part for the album. the
Absolutely,
Mellotron.
yes, it is. Yeah.
Legendarily John's left over. I don't
Yes,
know if
it
that's
found out it wasn't John's. It was one that EMI hired for John. He had kept his at home.
I went to Macca's studio once, and it's the first thing I was really lucky doing an interview. So he gave me a guided tour of all the instruments, and the first thing he does to everyone is turn the bloody Mellotron on and go, "This is the Mellotron from Strawberry Fields." I think Abbey Road sold all their stuff off at one point.
Did they?
In the 80s, it had some they're bonkers. They started buying digital synthesizers. And they decided that what they needed to do was get rid of all this old crap that no one wanted. And they sold a lot. And Paul bought as much of it as he could. So, and he's got the Mellotron.
It's funny because in the old days they used to reuse the 4 tracks, so there's lots of stuff was gone over.
Yeah.
Same with the TV stuff. There's
Yeah,
a lot
absolutely,
of
yeah.
CD performances that have just gone.
Never see it again because they were too expensive to waste tape,
It's crazy.
It is.
I had a BBC story where, just to show how the lack of awareness of these things, when I was a music producer then, they said, the commercial arm came in and said, we've got this brilliant idea. We're going to make loads and loads of documentaries, utilising all our BBC archive of music from the 60s and the 70s. And you team can make it, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I went, you haven't got any archive. You've got 20 I think, I can't remember the number because the odd one would crop up. But at the time, I think it was about 20, you've got 28 intact performances from Top of the Pops in the 60s. Everything else wiped. So which is the program that started in 64.
Yeah.
Literally everything. And the ones you always see are from the Christmas 67 one. So it's like, you see Procol Harum with Matthew Fisher with his hood.
I did an album with Matthew Fisher, produced him, yeah.
I met him once. He was a really nice
It
guy.
is, yeah, was.
Still alive, Matthew?
Is he?
Yeah.
It must be, yeah. Because we did a song, my wife and I did a song, he did an anthem. And it was for BBC, I think it was the programme. It didn't choose it. And I wrote some lyrics for it. But we liked the chorus, we liked the thing. So we used it, Viv and I wrote a song, verse of it, and so we put it out as something else,
He was really interesting. In fact, I must be one of the last people lucky enough to interview him and Gary Brooker together without them killing each other over who wrote White Shade of Pale.
Right, yeah.
We were doing a thing about White Shade of Pale for the BBC, and so we were at Maida Vale, so we got Hammond out on the piano, and they were talking through it, and no one seemed to disagree about who wrote it then.
It's weird.
It was really weird.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing about writing, isn't it? Because, I guess you and Rod quickly probably encountered this with the rest of the band. It's like you might have got some little checks in the post that the other guys weren't getting.
Well, that's why when we did Odysey and Oracle, it wasn't selling, and we didn't have enough gigs, and so 3 other people didn't have income from the songwriting, and so that's why we split, because there was nothing else. Paul was getting married, and he said, "I've got to get another job because we've got no money from touring." That's why we split. Said, and Kenny Everett sort of basically interviewed us and said, "Wouldn't it be better to wait till you put the album out before you split?" Didn't make a difference in England, but it did in America later.
How was the momentum lost then? So once Time of the Season became a hit in America, why didn't you just pull it all back together again and get on with it?
Because Rod had started his own group then. Colin was recording with someone else under the name of Neil MacArthur, Mike Hurst, and he was working insurance during the day and just recording in the evening then, until I suddenly said, Rod and I wanted to start. And then Rod said, great, he'd written the two big hits first of all. So he said, why don't we put our joint names on everything we write? The one song will keep us going. So we started a production company, because we went over to America and did a deal with CBS. We were in America when it hit #1, Time of the Season. So then we got together and we started producing together. We had Argent going then, and then we were working on Colin's. We talked to Colin into doing a solo album with him, and haven't looked back since. One thing that I always remember is it's so nice to be in your 70s to find out you were successful in your 20s.
I love the fact that you demonstrably from the various events I've been to over the years, still friends.
Absolutely. Very strange, because every other 60s group we know stay in different hotels when they're touring, they don't get on anymore. But we actually like each other. We got on. But that's because we started at school basically.
Didn't help George and Paul much.
No. How did it come about that you all started to make music again? Play live again?
Oh, it's simple. Rod and Colin Rod was only going to do. He was doing a keyboard for Colin in the 90s, and he said I'd only do 6 gigs because he said I'd given up on touring because he was producing his own stuff, and he liked it so much they carried on doing it, and they were originally going out as Argent Blunstone, but then in America they started calling it, advertising it as the Zombies, and that went on. And I suddenly said to Rod, do you realise next year it's the 40th anniversary? And so I said, why don't we just I'd like to do a gig again. All of us, the originals that are still alive. So that's how it happened. And Rod had the idea of just coming in 1 or 2 numbers. Then I suddenly said, why don't we do Odysey and Oracle? We never ever performed it. And so that's what happened.
Yeah. Those Palladium shows, they were fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah, I went. Yeah, I went.
That was fun.
But you're one of the first to do that whole thing of like doing the album in entirety,
Yeah.
From start to end.
Yeah, well, we
You know,
never
a lot of
played it
people
much.
are doing it now, but
Yeah.
that was one of the first times I saw that advertised, that you can, you know what song's next, you
Right,
bought the
yeah,
album,
yes,
you know the album inside
exactly,
out,
yeah.
so there's no surprises, but you don't care. You want to hear the album. You don't want any songs missed out. You don't want the greatest hits of the album. You want to hear it
Exactly.
with the guys that played
Yeah.
it. It was a fantastic
and you've
experience.
got Rod keyboard arrangements and Colin's great voice, and you can't fail as a musician to really enjoy doing it.
I love what you said earlier on. You felt like you're 18 again.
They did, yeah. I said 25.
25. Was you surprised at the reception you got?
Absolutely, it was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And as I said before, it's so nice to get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Long overdue.
That was fantastic. It was such an occasion.
What's it like to be? So the British invasion is a thing. It's a historical fact. It's the same as Henry and his 6 wives. It's a thing now. It's part of history. That must be very weird. There must be a weird thing because it gets written about all the time. It's mentioned once a week on something. The British invasion or something.
Yeah.
And every now and again it must pop into your head and go, oh Christ, that's me. I'm part of that.
Well, occasionally it does, basically, because we were so lucky to be in the 60s as a band, because it was exciting. The Beatles were doing their original music, and they opened up the door to everybody. Everybody wanted the English groups, and they'd never had anything like that in America until the Beatles, to be quite honest.
I do love the fact that Odysey and Oracle as well. I think that it seems to me the 2 big key influences are the Beatles and the Beach Boys, as well as it's like a development of your previous sound.
Right.
So it's its own thing. It's totally its own thing. It's one of my 10 favorite albums without a doubt.
Fantastic.
I've got 2 copies of it.
Oh, really?
But there's a huge jump in the writing, I think.
Yeah, the writing is.
If you look from because the first album came out and then there was a flurry of singles.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden this comes out, and I always think years in the 60s were far longer than they are now.
Yes.
To me, if I think of 1966 Revolver Beatles and 1966, 67 Sgt. Pepper Beatles, there's a huge growth.
Absolutely,
But it's
yeah.
only a year. And I can say the same about your stuff. You know, in 66, you were doing the singles, and then all of a sudden you go in 67, you go and write these fantastic songs, and they're so different.
We did it ourselves at that point. That's when we first went in and were out in the studio and the mixing. That's
the
the difference.
writing. The writing is just on another
Well, that's how it started. Rod and I fed off each other, you know. That was a fantastic period. But then nobody wanted it.
Until now.
But I think you can track it, and also if you look at the session photos for Odyssey, when you arrive in America, you look like mini Beatles, you know, with the suits and everything.
Yeah.
And I assume that's coming down from on high. You dress like this, you know,
Yeah.
and then within 2 years, you know, everyone's putting their foot down and going on me, you know, which is different.
True.
But again,
Styles change,
it's such short periods though that the difference. I mean, I always think that the difference between Sergeant Pepper and She Loves You is like 3.5 years, you know, which is like 3 years if you make it the writing. That's huge development. That's something I think artists miss out on now. Like
I do miss that now. I enjoyed the excitement of trying something new. That was the exciting thing. And of course, with the Beach Boys, as you said, in fact, the last tour we did as the Zombies originals was with Brian Wilson. That was fantastic because we used Darian Sahanaja, who later joined Brian when he did Odysey and Oracle.
he flew over for that last
right,
gig at the Palladium, I remember.
And he's the only person who could tell Rod when he's playing it wrong.
Oh, really?
He said, well, first rehearsal, Rod, he slowly came over to the keyboard and said, Rod, that's not how you played it on the album. I said, yes, I did. He said, no, you played this. And he showed, Rod said, oh, you're right. He's the only person who can tell Rod.
It's funny when that happens. I've got a similar story, but I'm not going to tell it because I'm just name dropping again. But I literally, someone I know, I won't say who, basically told me off and said, you're playing that wrong. When we were jamming together, I went, no. He says it's in C minor when it's in D minor. And he goes, oh no, you're right. Yeah, it's one of the most famous songs of the 70s. But I think one of the problems is that over the last touring years they dropped it a tone. So he got used to the idea of it being down.
Of course,
I think.
yeah.
That is a lovely artifact, isn't it? If you look at the sleeve there.
Right.
When you pick one up, what do you think of it now? What comes into your head when you pick that sleeve?
Well, my
up?
friend Terry Quirker, who I shared a flat with, and with Rod as well, and we were at art college together. He became an art teacher. I was a year behind him. And that's what I think about. And I think about when we first saw it and we missed the spelling rules.
Yeah. Must be quite interesting. I mean, obviously these days what you do is, I read somewhere that when the Beatles had Revolver unveiled, it had to literally be unveiled because it was an actual piece of art, right?
Yes.
It's not like share the files. It's literally there was a blanket and Klaus went like that. And
but that was the time when things were exciting and all new. That's the exciting thing.
How big was the original artwork, or was it done to size?
Same size.
Oh, it was the same size.
He said, well, I'll do a cover for you. And he drew around an album. And then he did it that size, you know.
Does he
Missed opportunity there for, a huge mural.
Yeah,
Does he still have the original?
Well, he's dead now, unfortunately. But he's, the original is now, his wife's got it back.
Fantastic.
That's the story. It's going to go out later on. I interviewed Klaus Forman for this, for the podcast. And do you know he got £50 for that sleeve?
Terry never got paid.
So I'll ring him up, tell him he did quite well. But do you know what? I still can't believe it. Someone stole the original artwork, and not one of the Beatles. Someone like the wife of a record company exec or something. Because I think I know where it is. I'd love to get it back. I was thinking, I'm going to get it back now, aren't you? But you got £50. I was going, what? Did I want to just think of every T-shirt and mug,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. I thought they were your best mates. I would have definitely dropped someone a few quid for that one.
Yeah, it's true.
But nothing. He didn't get anything. But there you go. But he lived long enough to know it had become a classic, though, I suppose.
Oh, right. And he knows it has the original, which is probably worth 30,000 at least,
Yeah, or more, I think.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Terry, would have...
Yeah.
It's a great sleeve. It's very, I do love that. And the reason I ended up listening to it was obviously, I think probably for a lot of British zombie fans, you come in through She's Not There and things like that.
Right, yeah.
And it kind of stopped there.
Yeah.
And then I saw that sleeve one day and it was like, that's clearly got my name written on it. This sleeve. and literally I bought it because of the sleeve.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, his wife will be glad to hear that now.
He also, did he not design your guitar as well? Your
Yeah, he painted my guitar.
Painted
Yeah,
your guitar,
yeah. He said, "This is a piano."
Right.
Typical of him, that was.
I think you said earlier that you lost that original one. I mean, what happened? What was the story of that?
I can't remember, to be quite honest.
Oh my God.
I know what it happened. When I stopped playing bass and concentrated on producing, I gave it to Jim Rodford, and he stripped it down, defretted it, and used it as an unfretted bass.
You should never give another musician your guitars. It's not. That's the last bass guitar I gave away was a Hofner violin copy. I lent it to my friend, and he said, "Oh, someone nicked it off the boat."
Oh dear. And you find out later, no, it didn't.
I don't know. It's probably in a pawn shop somewhere, knowing the person I lent it to. Actually, talking of which, you see they've done a documentary about McCartney's missing bass. Yeah, the one that got stolen.
Yeah.
Because they found it.
Yeah.
So the BBC have done a documentary.
Have
Paul
they?
and his missing bass, but Paul's in it with his bass.
Of course.
Yeah, so he got it back after all these years because someone had nicked it basically. And it's in someone's pub attic. No, instruments are weird like that.
It is, yeah.
But because the thing is, everything's ephemeral in those days. I suppose
Yeah.
it's just like functional. People do get attached to their instruments, but at the same time, it's also
Yeah.
functional.
Well, I'm not using it anymore. So my original bass was made by someone else who lived in Harpenden. I can't remember his name now. And Jim Rodford knew his name, but I don't know. But that's down the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's weird, isn't it?
It had its neck broken, but they repaired it. I gave it to them.
So the album that's coming out is the mono pressing
Yes.
of this album.
Yeah.
How do you think it differs to the stereo one? Because you mixed the stereo one, didn't you?
Yes.
You were asked to do
Yeah,
that.
that's right, yeah. They were difficult, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can't even imagine back then how you would then think, right, okay, what goes over there and what goes over there? What do we keep in the middle?
Well, when we mixed in stereo, because it was the first time we'd ever mixed something, we had a little room in Abbey Road studio, and the engineer sat there, and I sat behind him with Rod in front of me, sort of in a line. I mean, right close together, because you had to imagine what it was going to be like in stereo. It's quite difficult. Oh no, that was quadraphonic. That was even worse.
Oh, not of quadraphonic.
No. That was Argent album.
Yeah, but-
Terrible thing, quadraphonic.
I mean, what they had to do was, obviously the Abbey Road desk, I believe, had a left switch and a right switch, and a centre switch. That was your panning.
Yeah.
So I suppose the bridging was with echo and things like that you could.
No, we could move things.
You could
Yeah.
in those days.
Yeah.
Okay. The early Beatles stuff is definitely because
Very
it
strong
was-
right and left. Which is the
very
worst
strong.
ever, to be
Yeah.
quite honest.
Although it's fashionable again at the moment.
Yeah.
We were talking about that with someone last month. In fact, actually, because it is hard, but at the same time, it gives a kind of bigger breadth in
Yes,
some ways.
yeah.
And it's cuter if you want to hear individual instruments.
You always show off your stereo machine. Yeah.
And there is that thing as a producer, like wide mono, where basically everything is panned so far apart, especially once
in
you've
a
got-
way that's a bit annoying because you want to hear it as a whole. It's right in a gig because there's echoes and bouncing off walls and things. I once went to see Tommy. It was quadraphonic, and if you're sitting right at the back with the speaker there, all you could hear was that bit of the organ.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work at
It
all.
doesn't work. No.
The Beatles did that Love thing in Vegas, and I went. We were passing through Vegas on a shoot, so we went to see that, and they handled it by having auditorium speakers, but every chair had a couple of speakers.
Oh, did it?
So you basically get, when they wanted to give you a particularly pokey effect,
Yeah.
you got it individually in your ear,
Oh, that was good.
whilst also getting the big wash.
Yeah,
which was
that
kind
would
of
be
expensive.
Yes, yeah. Of course it is. Yeah.
You can tour it.
Great seat. Bloody hell.
That's why it's never been anywhere else,
Yeah.
I think, because they needed to basically build an auditorium for it.
When we first did quadraphonic, it's basically we were shown it in New York by a bloke who was doing classical music, because it was some recorded in Venice in a church with different instruments placed back. He played it to us on a tape, but the point is when you do it on quadraphonic disc, it has to be quadraphonic, compatible stereo, compatible mono. And so you can't have more than 3 dB difference between each speaker. So it gets very complicated.
I've got one quadraphonic disc at home, and it's Cyril Stapleton's orchestra.
Yeah.
Because I found it in the thing. Well, I don't know why I bought it. It's simply because I'll never be able to listen to it because you haven't got the gear. But,
That's it.
But
You used to get quadraphonic 8 tracks as well, didn't you? That was
were they actually quadraphonic?
yeah, not all of them, but I think there were. Well, I might be wrong, but I used
But
to.
orchestra's different because it's like you go to concert hall and you hear it and you feel like you're in the orchestra sometimes. That's different, but rock and roll, no.
So, Chris, you've been through. I mean, even I have been through every stage of musical technology development. You know, from vinyl through cassette, reel to reel, 8-track, laser disc, whatever. Is it weird that in 2025 you're putting out the mono vinyl version?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes. We had to get it right because the point is, when they asked us to listen to it, Rod and I both questioned it because basically we're so used to hearing it on stage, and so we couldn't remember the mono version. But then we had to get my sons to and other engineers to balance it, recut it basically to get it right.
How much involvement have you had with the new pressing that's coming out?
Well, quite a bit because my sons took it down to the people who did the original stuff, not the original, but later stuff, and they listened to it and they agreed that they were right. I don't trust my ears so much now, neither does Rod, because basically we're getting too ancient now for that, basically, and we remember it on stage. The sound is different. So I phoned up Rod and questioned him with the first pressing, and someone had done it, and then they did a new cut.
Right.
With the advice of my son, who was an engineer, and the people who cut out all our stuff now, mastering stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I do love the stereo. I've got to be honest.
So do I.
But yeah. I mean, it does all those beautiful 60s things of bouncing around, you know.
Yes.
Especially with the BVs. They come in and out all over the place, don't they? But that organic quality is what makes the difference, you know.
Yes. But Rod is a great believer in recording together. Not because unfortunately today people do it sessions and they have hundreds and hundreds of tracks, but you lose the feel of musicians working together. That's where the magic happens.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So most of the songs you'd lay down the drums, the bass, and the guitar live. Is that correct? On the
Everything. We do everything. Keyboards, everything. Yeah.
Everything live.
Yeah. In fact, on the stereo version, we're on 4 tracks, right? But when we first do it, we recorded guitar, bass, drums 1 track, keyboards on another, lead vocal on the 3rd, harmonies on the 4th. That's it. And we did it live. Not the harmonies.
This is why I'm getting confused, because when I read that in my modern-ish head, I'm assuming that, yeah, okay, you've got the guitar, the bass, and the drums on track 1. You lay that down separately.
No.
So it's all played live, but even though the keyboards are then on another track and the vocals on another track, it's still performed live, but just on the separate tracks.
Yeah. The vocals are in a separate booth because he sang there, but because we had Jeff Emmerich and Peter Vince as engineers in EMI. You can't get any better than that. They're so used to doing stuff live, you know.
But you've got the added pressure, haven't you, that if you bum a note, you've got the other 4 looking at you.
Well, we could drop in, but not when you've got bass, drums and guitar on one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very different to how they record now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the other thing is that with contemporary recording, because they've lost the spaces, like we were talking earlier, right, about Olympic gone.
Yeah.
So that you probably gathered by now, there's a couple of geeks in the room with you, and you know, I can identify quite often the major rooms, right? So I can have a pretty good stab at where something was recorded from the sound of it. Pretty, you know, after all these years of listening, and that's all gone because, you know, if you went to even the biggest superstars' house, they're using the same software that probably you and I have also got on our systems. Probably running Logic or Pro Tools with all the same plugins.
But rooms are important.
Rooms are so important.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't exist anymore. No. It's really hard. And Abbey Road, you know, what was your budget? £1,000?
£1,000. For the whole
Sorry,
album.
excuse me for swearing. I think it's about $2,500 now for the day for Studio 2 or something. So when you had 10 days? Yeah.
Well, over few months because
Yeah.
we used to do 2 songs at least for a 3-hour session, you know.
And some was done at Olympic as well, wasn't it? On this album?
Yeah, Beechwood Park, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the engineer. But
That's a great sounding guitar on that.
yeah,
That guitar sound.
for Leslie, yeah. It's really,
Yeah, is it a Leslie? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's uncompressed as well, so
Yeah.
you get the full effect of it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It really ebbs and flows,
Yes,
and
yeah, it does, definitely.
yeah.
That was in the big studio too.
I sat next to someone the other night at this party. Chris Welch, the melody maker,
Right,
journalist,
yeah.
He goes, when I was first here, I was a young journalist, and I was here for Led Zeppelin 3. They let me come
Right.
down to the recording sessions.
Huh.
Can't imagine Beyonce letting anyone into her sessions. That was a very chilled time. You know, like, hey, we're just working on this magnum opus. Come and sit in with us. You wouldn't have let journalists in while you're recording, would you?
No way, no.
No, there can't be anything good comes from that.
No.
It's weird though. I mean, it must be. How do your kids, your boys, feel about it? You know, like they obviously went off in a musical direction too.
No, they didn't start like that. I mean, the first thing I said to them is, whatever you do, don't go out with actresses and don't go into music. And they did.
We can cut that bit if you want.
Okay, please do.
No, I didn't want you to upset any in-laws or anything.
No.
No, I said the same thing to my daughter. Please don't go and work in TV or film. Of
Exactly.
course, she's literally doing that now.
We were lucky. Things happened for us, bad and good.
Yeah.
But we still were friends, and we still got through it all. The most important thing is to keep your copyright safe. Write
Never
your
sell
own
a
things.
copyright. That's
Yeah.
what they say, isn't it? Never sell a copyright. Yeah.
You said it earlier on. I think it's incredible that you're still friends. Like when I've watched the film, obviously, like how terribly you were managed and how bitter.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people could become because of that.
Absolutely.
You know? I think it's incredible.
We
that
ripped off about 3 million quid in the
It's
60s.
just yeah.
Well, because a lot of people haven't seen the film, I just want to. So tell us about the film. What's it called? And eventually, where would people be able to see it? So.
To be quite honest, I don't know where they are now, but it's on. You can buy it online. I don't know where.
Prime. It's on Prime at the
Prime,
moment.
oh, right. Yeah. And so that's the main place. It's because the bloke who directed it is a Coppola,
Right.
Francis Ford Coppola's nephew, I think.
Right.
And he did a great job. Because originally we didn't think there was anything they could use, nothing from the 60s, because everything's thrown away. But he did a great job on it.
It's a wonderful documentary. It really is good. I know it's on Prime because I watched it last week.
Oh, right.
But I came to the showing of it as well when you did the show in.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
rewatched it, and it's a really good documentary. And I think that
He
if
did a very
people
good
don't
job.
know too much about the zombies, you'll get a load of converts from watching.
Yeah,
it.
it's a good document at the time.
Yeah.
But also just the vileness of the music industry. The whole Philippines story really shocked me.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
was
tell me about that for our listeners. What was because the way it's portrayed in the film is that's the you know, like we're done.
Well,
what happened?
Basically, we didn't get any work in this country, so we go to Tito Burns and said, we haven't got enough work, because the other 3 were only on gigs, earning money. And he said, I can offer you 10 days in Manila. And we said, oh, fine, so you have 100 quid each, between you. And we thought it was a long plane journey, because in those days it took a long time to get there. And when we arrived there, we were met with thousands of kids. In those days, didn't have the internet, so we didn't know we had 3 songs in the top 20. And so there were thousands of kids at the airport at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And there was a motor train parade to our venue into Manila, and they stopped outside this great big building. And we said, what's this? He said, that's where you're playing, and you're staying there as well. And it was the second biggest Astrodome in Houston. And had a famous director from America come over to produce the show. And basically, he'd been asked to leave America because he got in trouble with the IRS. And so he took time out and went to the Philippines and directed the show, had dancers and all sorts of things. And we played to 300, 400, 500 people a night for 10 days for £18 each. And then we met a bloke who cut the records, a Japanese millionaire who owned a bank, ABC Bank. And he said, he took us out with his family, because we weren't allowed to leave the venue without having guards with us. And basically he said, I think you are being screwed. He didn't use those words, you're being cheated. And he said, basically, you've got another option for 10 days. Why don't you ask him for £1,000? And so he said, if he doesn't, I've got a consortium here. The mayor of Manila is godfather to one of my sons, and basically we'll get together. But then when we had to go to the airport and pretend to leave, because he had our passports, and I had them in my hands, my knees were knocking, and said, would you tell Mr. Aranita, we're not going to leave. We're going back. Some are going to England and some going back to Hong Kong. So we got passports, jumped over the counter, and they had a car take us to another hotel. That was a very frightening period, because it was a private place in those days.
Oh, at that point, did you know about the Beatles' troubles in the Philippines?
Yes, we knew about that. And it was obviously, they kept saying, those awful people, the Beatles, they insulted our First Lady. He didn't insult them. They weren't told they had an invite.
Doesn't matter anyway. It's almost Trumpian in its...
Yeah, except when you've got people with machine guns and things, that's frightening. We're not used to that.
No, well, I can imagine he's shaking. I mean, it's really difficult, that. And it kind of was enough to kind of make you all think, sod this.
No, we didn't sod it, because we needed to earn some money to get back, basically. And the first club we played in Manila, on the Golden Mile thing, burnt down the next day. And the second club we played said, we were town checking everything. He said, I can't put you on. I've been threatened.
Yeah, that's frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very frightening. But it must have been so shocking to see how many people had heard the music over there, how it got over there.
Well, it's before the internet, you see, so we didn't know we were successful in other places. That's the weirdest thing. It all worked out all right in the end, though, didn't it?
Yeah, but it's unfortunate, but it's not a lone story about managers of bands, especially in the 60s. No, you know, you hear, like I said earlier on, we're a pair of music geeks, and you read about the story about the Small Faces, you know, countless bands that all got ripped off by managers.
But they thought it wasn't going to last. In fact, years later, I worked with an assistant to Tito, and he was part of it, and I said, look, if I'm going to have to work with you, we got ripped off, and he suddenly said, yes, I'm sorry for that. He said, but if we didn't, someone else would rip you off.
That's horrible. That's really horrible. So when you talk about the Philippines, who was making the money from these thousands and thousands of ticket sales?
Tito Burns.
It was. It's awful.
Well, that's the way they thought of that way. Is you put people out and you just pay them little. You get the attention, and you can get your artist. He managed Cliff Richard at one point, and different people.
Before you or after you?
Before us.
Before you. Okay.
If you're named after a dictator, then you probably it's not a good start, is it?
I never thought about that. It's the first time I thought about that. Yeah, and I suppose having the surname Burns as well.
Definitely anti-English. Yeah. It's one of those things though, when you know it's so hard to go back. I bet you all wish you'd been carrying portable tape recorders to record first impressions and everything. But being a young man, sort of having loads of boys and girls like screaming at you, you know, kind of thing. It must be a very weird head-turning experience. Who dealt with that well in the band? Who didn't? And what was it actually like?
Well, it was after the Beatles, and we'd seen so much. The Beatles have always got screamed. It was frightening, actually, in a way, but sometimes because they weren't gentle. And when we were doing Dick Clark tours in America, I remember one time Hugh was caught and had his hair cut, bits of his clothing and everything, and they went after you with scissors and everything, just to get a souvenir. It was quite frightening in a way.
But I take it you'd seen the reaction that the Beatles had got in America
Yes.
very shortly before you
Yeah,
went. So you
yeah.
had an idea of the hysteria.
Yes.
To actually have that applied to you.
That is quite weird. It's
Yeah.
quite weird.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to go on for work on a red carpet for any reason? It's bloody weird. I've had to do it as a journalist, right? No one knows who the hell I am. But you go up there and there's all these people, they don't know who you are, so they just like mindlessly yelping as you walk in with someone else because you've got a nice suit on or something. I'm like, literally, this is my idea of hell, like to have to live in under that gaze, you know. I
Yeah.
can't imagine what it must have been like for
actually,
Mick Jagger or...
Well, it's to sell records. It's sell to get people along to the venues. So you have to go along with it. Simple as that. It's part of the course, to be quite honest.
So after the album and the split of the band, did it feel like a relief for you to start a new beginning, or was there sadness there?
No, it's sadness in a way, because at that point they hadn't recognised Odysey and Oracle. It had been dropped. But then Rod and I wanted to keep on working and writing, so we formed a partnership and started working with his group, Argent, and we did Colin and people like Duffy Power and other people, you know.
And did you feel more in control when you did,
Yes.
when you started,
Yes.
basically started again after the zombies?
I
You
looked
felt-
after the finances better. But we had good publishers. They were the one thing, we got paid
Yeah.
from our songwriting. And so we worked right till the end with our publishers until 2 years ago, basically.
And the other thing is, from this perspective, you can make it sound like really elongated, but from She's Not There to Time of the Season, it's like 4 or 5 years anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not
I know.
it's the same time as from here to
Right,
COVID.
yeah. Yes.
You know, back to COVID.
It is, yeah.
And then you're still talking about it. Here you are.
Right. It's quite frightening, really, isn't it?
Like I said earlier on, 60 years were longer than the years now.
yeah,
It
they
was,
are.
yeah.
It must be.
Yeah. I feel sorry for musicians, young musicians nowadays, because there's no venues to speak of, and they can't make a living, you know.
You did do a lot of work though afterwards. We both had, you know, dipped into the Chris White recordings. You know, they're really interesting. But how does it feel that if people ask you about anything, they ask you about that album? You know, you've done this whole body of work, but they're more likely to ask you about that.
Of course they are, yeah, because that's the one that took off is a legend, basically, because nobody wanted it, first of all, and they didn't sell. Then all of a sudden, one DJ picked up one track from it in America, and he played it all the time. Dick Stock, I think he's dead now, but basically he owned the film. But basically he played it, and then CBS weren't going to, in America, because it was CBS America, that they weren't going to push it anyway. They put it on a small label, actually.
Leading, of course, to the famous fake zombies, which I always think is one of the funniest things. For those who don't know, there was a bunch of bands that were posing as the real zombies, which included
2 members of ZZ Top.
ZZ Top, right? Yeah, amazing. No, I'm just always curious. It's one of those things like every artist has to battle with, you know. So, what am I most remembered for? Am I okay with that? Is that the thing that I should be remembered for? You know? But you seem at ease with it.
Oh yes, totally easy, because it's a good story, you know, and we're still alive, and we still like each other, and we're still friends, you know. That's the important thing.
That come across in the documentary, what a fantastic story it is, because I know my Beatles story inside out, and then, you know, there's bands that I've followed as I've grown up, and I know their story, but I still buy the books and I know it all, but I hadn't really heard that story.
Right.
And it's a fantastic story.
It is. It's unusual, because who are the zombies, basically? That's what most people say. Oh, I've seen the TV series about them living dead, basically.
Yeah.
Well, that is one of those things that, from an internet search engine point of
Yeah.
view, you have to type in zombies band.
Yeah.
I've noticed. Or you get some very
Or
weird
the
results.
zombies, I have to look up.
Yeah,
Right,
the
yeah,
zombies.
yeah.
Well, we better wrap this up, because you've got an event tonight.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it never ends, right? So you and Colin are doing a Q&A tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I always have to close, because we've been talking about your whole career and everything, but normally I would say to someone at this point, like having thought about it, can you imagine life without the Beatles? Is there anything? But I'm not going to ask you that. I'm going to do something really naughty and say, so you worked with all the big, you had to share TV shows and studios with all the big 60s bands and everything. Tell us one bit of gossip from those days that when people haven't heard. Who was the horrible person? Who was that 60s legend who was a bit more difficult than the others?
I haven't met any nasty ones, to be honest. I'm sorry to tell you that.
Well,
I
actually,
just didn't speak to them if they...
Well, it could be good gossip, of course.
Yeah.
I suppose that's nice in its own way.
Yeah.
Can I have one more question?
Yeah.
If push comes to shove, what's your favourite track on the album?
Time of the Season, I think, has to be, because it's become a legend now.
And what was your favourite to play?
This will be our year.
Yeah.
It's become the perennial wedding song now.
I've heard, yeah.
Two of my sons got married using it.
My favourite of the fast ones is Brief Candles. I think Brief Candles is amazing.
Thank you.
But I was after the Butcher's Tale. So I that's actually made me cry before now. So.
Oh, well, yeah, as I said, I was struck. My uncle died. My uncle, who was 16 years old, he died on the Battle of the Somme. And I hadn't really thought about it till I read the Donkeys, I think it was, and then realised it was shocking. I was driving to rehearsal and I had to pull over the side of the road because I got upset that 30,000 people killed the first morning. And I suddenly thought of all the families and how pointless the whole thing is.
Yeah. My great granddad died there too. I have his medals.
Oh, do you? Yeah.
Pipsqueak and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But how pointless it was.
Very. But one of the things that I did a lot of research for it, because I wrote a book of this based on a film I was doing. And was one of the myths is that it wasn't until the 1920s that people said things like, lions led by donkeys. It was like in the 1920s. But actually, at the time, people were happy to sign up.
Yes.
And felt they were doing a good job.
Yes.
And the other myth is that we were badly led, for example, when in fact, yes, everyone was caught unprepared day one. But we learned very, very quickly, our generals did. And ultimately, the reason the Germans gave up was because, they were, we'd learned faster than they had,
And the tanks.
The casualties do go down over time. But, they were literally caught on the hop. They had no idea what they were doing. But that first day of the Somme is one of the great tragedies. But anyway, gorgeous song.
Thank you.
And I loved it at the Palladium because Rod got the old harmonium out and did it properly. That was lovely.
Yeah.
But anyway, Chris, we better leave it there.
Well, that's lovely to talk to you both. Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Were we geeky enough for you? And we're quite geeky, aren't we? To be fair?
I bet you must get me all sorts.
You probably know more than I do, basically.
That's the thing that Paul McCartney always says. It's like, I don't know. What the hell? I don't know what clothes I was wearing on that day. But actually, so mine is the approach that I've always taken though is I want to, in a writerly way, I'd love people to kind of go, not just tell me about scrambled eggs or something, and how I wrote yesterday, but go, where were you sitting when that happened? And Paul did tell me a story once, and he's now, it doesn't work, you see. You can get him to tell you a story, and then he starts repeating it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a new story, which was, I was just saying, I want you to picture yourself in the studio. One time you're in the studio that you haven't told anyone about, something you remembered. And I said, let's take we'll pick a song, we'll pick any song. And I said, Hey Jude, right? So tell me something about that, about what comes into your head when you think. And he goes, well, actually, in my head, I was doing a take and Ringo wasn't there. And he'd gone to the toilet or something. But he got back just in time to, crash in. It was probably a rehearsal take, something. He now tells that as a story, right? But he goes, all I remember is Ringo sitting in just in time to go boom, 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 or something. And I'm like, I don't even believe him. But anyway, but you drag one story out of someone and it becomes their new anecdote.
Well, then you did it first, though.
I don't know if I did or didn't. I'm just saying, but that was the question I asked.
Right,
him. Maybe someone else, he told someone else. I hadn't read it before. But no, I mean, it's really difficult now, of course, because it's like, I would think what it'd be like if someone said to me, do you remember Tuesday the 21st of December in 1985 when you were at sixth form? Do you remember that day in the canteen? And what were you arguing about?
That's true.
But it's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what people are. I know I've just done it to you anyway. Got to try.
Yeah, well done.
I often suspect that people from that period as well, this is my thing, have actually got a personal trove of memories that they wouldn't share anyway. And I don't mean just like the naughty stuff. I just mean like, God damn it, my whole life isn't for everyone else, like, so when I do think of Paul doing something with his guitar case, tripping over or something, that's my memory, not someone else's. But,
Well, I always remember, because when we were touring, doing Odysey and Oracle with original members in America, everything, because you're on the bus and everything like that. And I said to my wife, basically, he said, when we were first touring, we talked about all the girls we'd met and everything like that. Now it's how difficult it is to get out of the bath.
I've got to say, by the way, for the film, if anyone doesn't get a chance to see it, the stuff with that final performance, that was absolutely very moving.
That's very nice, thank you. Yeah,
that was.
Between Paul 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that was captured.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Anyway, Chris,
lovely. I want to get back to work.
We better just literally do this as a wrap up, though.
Okay.
Not running off in the middle of it. So yeah, Chris, thank you so much. What an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Yeah.
We'll see you on the next episode, and that will be coming up just in time for Halloween. Okay.
For the zombies, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, goddamn. Goddamn. Wow, that's what I should do. The special Halloween edition. All right, forget that. No.
Okay.